Erica, thank you so much for chatting with me today. Would you like to start off by talking a little bit about yourself and where you were in your career when kids entered the scene?
Oh, hi, Cindy. Thank you for having me. And when kids entered the scene, that was a whole shift in my life. I think for many of us, it's something you could never prepare yourself for. And as many people give you so much advice, but until you're living it, you don't get it. And I remember when I had my son, I was working at this company called Good Technology, and I was an engineering individual contributor. And I remember being so nervous just to take time off work. And I'm a first gen graduate in my family. So I was just so determined, get a job, be an engineer, graduate from school. And I was finally living my profession. And so then that put everything into question when you have a child and all of a sudden this choice, I felt like I had to make a choice. Do I work or do I stay home and take care of this baby? And my son, who, you try so hard to have a child and build a family in the first place, and it finally happens, you feel you need to have everything come to a screeching halt. And I remember having a tremendous amount of guilt. My mom was a stay-at-home mom, but she also worked at home to help my dad's business. And my mom had given me some advice at the time. She said, Erica, do you remember anything when you were 3 months old, 4 months old, 6 months old? And I was like, no, I don't. She's like, then why don't you just go back to work? I will help you. And there's facilities out there and daycare. And I was like, I was so logical, a logical standpoint at that point. And I'm thinking, gosh, they will not remember. This is all about me and what I'm feeling right now. And so it's a baby. It's not going to remember. And that was the logical thing of this guilt. And then coming to back to work, my husband just really encouraged me. He says, I know that you're not happy. I know that you're you're actually probably driving me crazy a bit at home. And I just always wanted to be busy. And I remember my manager had called me when I was on maternity leave. I had taken, I think it was about 6, 7 weeks at the time. And I honestly thought when he was calling me that I was going to get fired. And I didn't have a lot of role models in the company that were walking around having babies and, being especially in engineering. And he said, hey, I'd like to have you lead the team. And I was completely amazed. Here I was in my mindset thinking whether I should be at work and then let alone get a promotion. And I immediately wanted to go to work right away, but juggling life, I'm still juggling. My kids are now 15 and a half and 13 and a half. What our kids need from us, whether they're infants or teenagers, it constantly is change and iteration. So kids entering the scene and then still in the scene, I have a lot of learning still along the way.
So you just mentioned juggling. What have you learned from juggling your very important roles as mom and corporate executive? And what's your best advice for other working moms?
Juggling is a constant change and iteration. What worked for me last year may not work for me this year. But one of the things I learned early on when the kids were small, you start realizing the tactical things that you would do, whether it's cleaning around the house, whether it's like cooking, my husband and I, my partner, I realized all those things were just not getting done. And I also need to work and also spend time with my child. So I quickly learned that I needed to get help. And I understand that not everyone has the financial possibility to be able to do that, but I try and outsource everything I can do besides love. And so the more that I can get someone else to help those tactical things, the more I can focus on spending the quality time with my children. And so it's not always about quantity of time, it's about quality of time. So I try and focus on what are those moments where I would like to be there and spend that time with them, whether it's having dinner together every night or being at that school event. I may not be able to be at all school events, but thank goodness, actually some of the benefits that we've learned post-pandemic and flexible hours, I'm actually there for my children more than ever where I have the flexibility. So if anything, that's been a major upside, and I'm able to juggle more in that direction, whereas before I felt that there was more constraints and needing some more help. But I'm constantly changing and iterating. And then also right now in the phase of where my children are, they also want to be with their friends. So when you have teenagers, it's interesting because they want to be with you all the time when they're really young and they need you all constantly time. Now there's this new change. I'm like, this is hard for me to get used to. And so I got to figure out those moments of true quality time to spend with them that they also are willing to do as well. So again, what they needed from me when they were younger to now is just constantly changing, and also learning as a parent. And my methods that I maybe grew up with are not the same methods that work for them. So I'm always like software. I'm always A/B testing everything I do, and it's a constant conversation. I'm like, okay, that didn't work out too well. Blew that one. Let me try something else. And just the way you're even communicating with your children at this age too. It's there's just so much going on. So juggle is beyond juggling for sure.
How do you make yourself feel comfortable with the inevitable trade-offs that you have to make when you're juggling?
That's an excellent question. Comfort and feeling that way is hard. And it's interesting because being in the industry for 20 plus years, you think, oh, you're comfortable in your decision. This is the right decision. I continuously question myself. I think right now, before they go off to college, I may only have so many years. So should I be actually right now, this is the critical time, maybe I should spend more time with them. And so the comfort level is never completely 100% comfortable. You have to just be okay with some of the choices. And of course, when I look back, would I've wanted to do different things in a different way? And of course, that hindsight's always 2020. But comfort is, at the end of the day, when I see my child caring for another individual. And it's interesting when I see how polite they are and great with strangers or to other people. And then when they're in the home, you see sometimes a complete opposite different thing when you can, question yourself and comfort. And then, I'm trying to raise a good human being, a self-confident person in their skin and what they want to do. So our job is to not hold on to our children. Our job is to actually let our children go and be independent, strong adults. And it's a new era that I'm in parenting to figure that out. So I'm trying to get more and more comfortable in different ways. And I can't imagine the empty nest syndrome, what that's going to feel like. But so I would say enjoy every moment because it's just so unique. And I look back, in some ways being comfortable, could I have been more comfortable in the early days? I wish I would have taken more time off. We didn't have some of the benefits that we have definitely in the tech industry of all the time off. I wish I would have taken more time off. But I was so not confident. I was so insecure about making sure my career did not have an impact. So I think we have a lot more benefits and we should be taking advantage of those. And I think more importantly, not just women, but men taking their parental leave is such a good example of being able to have both partners do that and also share the load, and more importantly, and also just set a tone. I think one of the things being a leader as an engineering leader and having different folks on the team that take leave, I love when I have the men take parental leave, because sometimes in my early days of my career, I'd hear like, oh, she took time off, this project is behind. How is that okay? But then you have another parent that didn't take the time off. Those are not the kind of conversations we should have. We should set expectations of an organization that it is okay. This is normal. This is called creating a human population and creating families. This is part of life. And so the more that we can embrace that in our policies is also really important. So comfort is a big word, but I think that we're evolving for sure, and we're always trying to get a little bit more comfortable with it.
So when you think back on the moms that you've managed, who are among your most valuable employees, what did they do differently that made them so successful?
So I think what I've seen some of the women in my team, they're setting really good boundaries. And this is the time. First of all, they're taking the time off, which is amazing. And I think they should definitely do that. Then the second thing is just setting expectations, right? Maybe the way you worked before guess what? Your style is going to change. I remember in the early days as an engineer, I would work until 2 in the morning, even sometimes 3 in the morning. All of a sudden you have a child that is now in your life, your schedule actually changes. And so the schedule that maybe worked for you before is not the same schedule before that you used to have. So I think setting expectations, hey, every morning I like to drop my daughter off to school. That's part of my schedule. I'm not available during those times, but I am available during these times. So the more that you can be flexible and set those expectations of when you're available, I think that's great, because we all want to help each other out. And it's not just because you're maybe taking care of a child, you may be taking care of a loved one, or you may just have other life circumstances. I think the more that we can just be open to having flexible schedules, having flexible understandings, not these hard, fast rules. This works for me, may not work for you. And so that is what has been successful. And as a leader, I'm not worried about when people clock in their hours. I'm worried about the results and the impact that they're doing on their work. And that's all that matters. However they do it, that is up to them. Yes, there are common times where we need to gather and we need to meet. And of course that is required, but of course we're going to try and be as flexible for the team as much as possible.
Wow, so much insight. I am so appreciative of that, and like all the time that you took. It was so great talking to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Cindy.